Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Paul, I'm with the Dicey Review, and tonight we're going to be looking at the 2 to 4 player game, The Tea-Dragon Society from Renegade Game Studios. The Tea-Dragon Society comes with all of the components that you see here, including 4 player aid cards, 4 Tea-Dragon characters, each with their own starter cards, 12 cards in each deck, 28 market cards, and then 24 memory cards, 6 each for spring, summer, fall, and winter. To begin setup, each player will choose a dragon card and take the dragon's matching starter deck. You can tell which cards relate to which Tea-Dragons because they'll have the Tea-Dragon's name on the bottom of the card, and they'll have this starter deck symbol on the bottom right of the card. Each player will select a character, shuffle their starter cards, and place them as a face-down deck to the left of the character card. Next, prepare the market deck by shuffling all the market cards and laying out 4 face-up. Players will use 1 more memory card than the player count in each season. Before each game starts, shuffle each season's memory deck, and then remove cards until there's 1 more than the player count. We're going to be playing a 2-player example, which means 3 cards will need to be removed from each deck. After shuffling and removing the appropriate number of memory cards from each season, lay out the spring memory cards face up to form the memory tableau. The remaining memory cards for spring, fall, and winter need to be placed in a face-down stack nearby as they'll be used later in the game. It may be helpful for each player to have a reference card. Finally, determine a starting player. This is either the oldest player or the player that's teaching the game. In our example, the player who controls ginseng will be the first player. Give the Mentor's card to the player sitting to the right of the start player. It's important to note that in the Tea-Dragon Society, players don't have hands of cards. Each player has an area to the right of their deck known as their hold. When players play cards to the table, they will be placed in their hold. As you can see, this player has their Tea-Dragon character and the Mentor's card face up in their hold. Now that we've determined a start player, we're ready to begin the game. Beginning with the first player, each player will take a turn. On a player's turn, they can choose to do one of the following 3 actions. They can either draw a card, buy a market card, or buy a memory card. Once a player finishes their action, their turn will end and play will pass to the player to their left. Let's look at the first action, drawing a card. To draw a card, a player will simply draw the top card of their deck and place it face up in their hold. Cards may have effects that trigger when a certain card is drawn. For instance, the Jasmine character card says that each time a grooming card is drawn, this player gets to draw another card. This effect would trigger immediately when this card is drawn, and each card can only be triggered once per turn. After resolving the card's effect, the player's turn would end and then pass to the left. The next action a player can take on their turn is buying a market card. To buy a market card, a player has to discard cards from their hold. Some cards in a player's hold will have a growth symbol. To buy a card from the market, a player simply has to discard enough growth from their hold to match or exceed the growth cost of the card they want to buy. So for instance, this bed costs 3 growth, and the player currently has 4 growth in their hold. So as an action, this player could discard these 2 cards that equal 3 growth, and then purchase the bed as it only costs 3. When you purchase a market card, immediately add it to your hold, and then draw a new market card to replace the one that you purchased. If the market deck is ever depleted when you need to replace cards in the market tableau, simply reshuffle the market discard pile to form a new draw deck. It's important to note that you don't get change for discarding more growth than you spend. It's also important to note that 2 of the market cards, Brick and Fickle Dragons, have immediate text that must be resolved when they are drawn. After resolving these 2 cards, simply discard them and draw a new market card to put in their place. The last action a player can take on their turn is to buy a memory card. When buying a memory card, players will discard growth from their hold, just like when they buy a market card. When a player buys a memory card, however, it will not be added to their hold. It will be added to their discard pile. So for instance, this player could discard these 3 cards showing 1 growth each, they could spend the mentor's card, passing it to the player to their right, and then take this memory card since it costs 4 growth. Then the player would take this card and put it in their discard pile, and shuffle their discard pile and their draw deck together to form one new draw deck. After this step happens, it is then the end of the player's turn, and play would pass to the player to their left. If after buying a memory card, only one memory card remains in the memory tableau, players will then change seasons. This process will follow these steps. First, players will discard the remaining memory card in the memory tableau. Then, the memory cards from the next season are placed face up to form a new memory tableau. Finally, all of the cards in the market tableau are discarded, and 4 new market cards are drawn to replace them. Play will continue like this until the game end condition has been met. The game will end when only one winter memory card is left in the memory tableau. After the game end condition has been met, players will tally the points on each of the cards in their deck, and the player with the most points wins. Some cards will have point values printed on the bottom of the card. Some cards will have conditions that have to be met to generate points. In the example of this winter memory card, a player will gain 2 points plus 1 point for each card that is not a starter card they have at the end of the game. In this example, the player currently has 6 market cards and 4 memory cards for a total of 10 extra points. The player also has an iron teapot item that gives them 1 point for each memory card they have at the end of the game, so this card would be worth 4 points. After totaling all of these cards, this player would score 29 points. After each player totals their points, the player with the most points is the winner. Alright everybody, that was our video. Thanks so much for watching. We hope that it was helpful and we hope that it was informative. If you still have questions about how to play the game, please comment below or email us directly at thedicey@gmail.com. You can always hear more from us by listening to the Dicey Review podcast. It can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, or pretty much any podcast app. You can read our written reviews over at thedicey.review.com and make sure and connect with us at our Board Game Geek Guild. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, we'll see you at the table.